All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to April 28th MakerDAO community call. My name is David Utrobin. I work at the Maker Foundation doing community development, and I get the good pleasure of facilitating these calls and hanging out every Tuesday with a bunch of you guys from the community and getting everybody up to speed on what's been going on in the Maker universe. And so, sometimes we use this call to go through like interesting demos with guests, or maybe even have people from the foundation come on and present relevant and interesting things. This week we don't have a guest. Next week though, we're gonna have I'm blanking on his name. Well, the guys at Maple.finance. So they're gonna be coming on next week to demo their mainnet production of these things called smart bonds. I still have to do a little bit more reading on them myself, but nevertheless, it looked super interesting. So might be a nice break from the norm to have a guest on next week. But this week, we're just going to go through kind of what's happened in governance, mostly what's been happening in governance, and then just a few highlights from the community. And I'll be pointing you guys to a bunch of resources. So for those of you guys in the call, just know this is a super laid back open format. So feel free to like jump in if you have a microphone, add any questions. Feel free to even shout out stuff that I might have missed. I am prone to missing things from time to time. All right, cool. So let me actually share my screen here so I could kind of go down the bullets with you. And then also for people who are just watching the recording, might be a little bit more structured. So it'll be a little bit easier to follow along. All right. So here's the agenda that we put together. All right, cool. So some TLDRs. These am I muted? No. Some TLDRs. Just some of the major points from this week. An executive vote passed on April 25th. I added the catflip.co link here, and if you don't know what this is, it's a really like clean website for seeing the change in the code, at least for executive votes. But as you'll see soon, not all executive votes necessarily have code changes, like for example, ones that ratify Maker improvement proposals. But still, I thought this link might be useful for a few people. So this executive vote that recently passed had a ton of stuff associated with it. So firstly, 48 addresses voted with a total of about 121,000 MKR. I think the majority of it was like in the top 8 or 9 addresses, naturally. But here are all of the different things that were changed with this executive vote. So the USDC stability fee was further lowered from 8% to 6%. This is kind of going in line with the community sentiment that USDC should be used for more than just an emergency source of liquidity, and actually right now is like the emergency in a lot of the community's eyes, because the DAI peg is still trading above $1. So in line with kind of the thinking of MKR holders, as a monetary policy decision, this stability fee was lowered to incentivize more DAI supply from USDC. The USDC liquidation ratio was actually lowered from 125% to 120%. This has the effective effect of wow, that's redundant, but it has the effect of requiring less actual USDC to mint DAI. Of course, this is kind of just a decision to lower the required collateral amount, but it's still worth noting that USDC vaults do not actually go through liquidations right now. So yeah, this is purely just for for lowering collateral requirements. Also in line with getting more DAI liquidity to balance out the peg. We've also raised the governance security module delay from 4 hours to 12 hours. This was lowered to 4 hours after March 12th, basically to be a little bit more flexible and quick in the ability for MKR governance to make decisions and changes. And so that was readjusted up to 12 hours. So it's not the original 24-hour delay, but it is a bit more of a balance between the 4-hour one and the original 24-hour one. We've also raised the ETH the DAI debt ceiling from ETH from 90 million to 100 million. This was done because we were coming really close to the last debt ceiling, and also we needed to raise it in order to give people the ability to migrate. So yeah, that happened. And then we had a few Oracle-related changes. So we whitelisted Set Protocol on the ETHUSD Oracle. We created a BTC USD Oracle, as well as adding DYDX and Set Protocol to the whitelist. We also created an ETH BTC Oracle, and we whitelisted TBTC on that. And actually, if you have any additional questions on these, I'm going to point you guys to the forum posts, and you guys could ask in there, and Nick can give you either further reasoning or you could see the info that's already in those threads. And then the last one, saving the best for last, is potentially, well, yeah, I guess it's the very last step, virtually for SCD shutdown. So we've deactivated the MKR Oracle in single collateral DAI. Effectively, what this does is all CDPs that still exist on single collateral DAI have had their stability fees forgiven, because stability fees are calculated in MKR, and the Oracle has been deactivated. So essentially, the very last of the CDPs that are going to be going through emergency shutdown have had their stability fees forgiven. And this originally was meant to incentivize people to migrate. So the idea would be that if you're holding out to not pay stability fees, just for the sake of that, and that's your excuse for not migrating, well, guess what? Now you don't have an excuse. Just migrate over. We'll forgive your fees. But actually, as I'm going to mention later, the migration contract is actually out and has been drained in particular due to one large CDP that moved their position, which is great, but also kind of opens up some questions for the people that didn't get a chance to migrate that still want to. But I'll talk about that in a little while. So yeah, that's just a brief summary of the executive vote that just passed on the 25th. And so now I'm going to give you guys a bit of an update on SCD shutdown. So the near final steps towards SCD shutdown, which are the scheduled shutdown spell and the MKR Oracle deactivation. They went on to this executive vote that I just talked about and passed. So this wasn't just an executive vote for an MKR Oracle deactivation. It actually also included a scheduled shutdown spell. And so this spell actually solidified the date of SCD shutdown. So now we do have a solid date. It's going to be in 3 weeks on May 12th. And this date was chosen as a result of a forum poll that was run on the Maker forums that I believe something like, was it 50 or 60 people participated in that? And most people landed on May the 12th. So that's what's going to be happening. So the action of shutdown of the system at this point in time is implemented through this executive spell, which includes a mini contract controlling the time of shutdown. And it's also worth noting that collateral prices at the time of, you can read caging as emergency shutdown, will be determined by the Oracle. So just a quick note, if you do hold any PSI or a CDP, at the end of shutdown, you're going to get like the net value of your position or your assets in ETH. And so let's say the Oracle, at the time of shutdown, the Oracle says ETH's price is, let's say, $170, and you have 170 PSI, then you will get exactly 170 PSI worth of ETH, assuming PSI is still trading like on peg and all that kind of stuff. But basically, PSI stops being a stablecoin and starts being a claim on ETH, because if about an hour later, let's say ETH goes to $180, guess what? Your dollar PSI is still claiming that same amount of ETH. So PSI ceases to be a stablecoin, but becomes a proxy to ETH, basically. So And if you're interested in reading more about the sequential process of SCD shutdown, you could go into this thread that Derek Fossman created. Super helpful. All right. And then now I'm going to give you guys a quick update on MIPS. So the request for comment phase ended, and the timing poll was launched yesterday. And if you're hearing this and saying, what the hell is the request for comment phase, and what the hell is the timing poll? Well, you've come to the right place. The foundation came out with a set of maker improvement proposals, like a full set of 13 different proposals, and they encapsulate what's being called a governance paradigm. These initial proposals are meant to kind of give the process and infrastructure and rails for governance to do things in a standard way, where there's like minimum confusion and processes in place to do all the necessary things that governance at Maker needs to do. And so part of that is having a request for comment phase, because we haven't actually ratified this set of proposed improvement proposals yet. So the phase ended on, I think, the 24th. Might be wrong about that, but yeah, sometime in the last few days it ended, and the timing poll was launched yesterday. And so what the timing poll is it's basically saying, are we going to ratify the current MIPS? So either proceed with the ratification vote, which would be an executive vote, or to delay the current ratification vote for another month, giving some additional time to this request for comment phase. And so if we proceed with the ratification vote, then it's going to occur over 4 days. On Friday, May 1st, an executive is going to put out asking, are we ratifying these 13 MIPS? And if that resolves to a yes, then the official first governance cycle, ooh, big concept. Click on the link here if you want to read more. Will begin on May 4th, the first Monday of the month. And a governance cycle is basically just a timeline outlined in the MIPS, giving maker holders kind of a regular cadence with which to consider MIPS, to like put designations on them, whether they're accepted or deferred or obsolete, and basically having some sort of regular cadence for dealing with MIPS and for dealing with protocol management in general. So it's nice to see that additional structure being built in slowly but surely to the governance layer. And so yeah, once the governance cycle has begun, meaning if this vote passes yes, and it should be concluded by Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, by the time the governance call comes around. So watch out for that. And it looks like currently the winning vote is yes to ratify them. But once the governance cycle has begun, the formal submission of the next set of MIPS and subproposals are set to occur between May 4th and 6th. So this basically launches us into our first cycle of considering even additional MIPS. I think I'm right about that. Because it was initially a little bit confusing to me whether, like, it almost sounded like we're ratifying them twice, because it's talking about how a final ratification vote would begin on May 22nd and end on 30th, but it's talking about and if you want to hop on the mic, go for it, Ed. I think I
can add what they're doing.
Yeah, Charles, go for it.
Yeah, so you're right that once the MIPS are ratified on the upcoming weekend vote, that the current MIPS, so 13 proposals broken down into those core governance and collateral onboarding sets, as well as the two sub-proposals for onboarding a MIP editor and smart contract domain team, would be formally accepted. Right. So the step that you were currently highlighting is the case in which the timing poll proceeds to not go ahead with the Friday vote. So that would be the vote if it doesn't go through. Just to make that correction.
Got it. So if it doesn't go through, then the ratification vote, instead of happening on May 1st, is going to be set to a month later, May 27th, ending on May 30th. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So and then the governance cycle would begin on June 1st.
Right.
And so when the governance cycle begins, this basically allows anyone who's been considering a collateral type to be added to the protocol, they can, and has already had it posted in the forums as that application that people have been seeing. You'd
Right.
be able to submit the requirements for that collateral type in a MIP-12 proposal, which includes the smart contract teamwork, the risk teamwork, and the Oracle's teamwork all bundled up and ready to be added in, basically.
Nice. Cool. And so, am I right in understanding this point right here? Once the governance cycles begun, the formal submission of MIPS and subproposals will occur between May 4th and May 6th. That's talking about already iterations or additions past these initial 13, right?
Yeah, so that's new ones, yeah.
Yeah, new ones. Okay, cool. So this would be a different point if new. Set up later for people who are going to be looking at this stuff afterwards. All right, cool. So if the timing poll resolves to delay the ratification vote 1 month, a competition process would begin immediately. This process is a maker improvement proposals process where multiple versions of MIPS are presented as choices to the maker community. For example, several versions of MIP3, which describe the governance cycle, might be presented. And for this, again, if this gets delayed, if the timing poll fails, the deadline for submitting competing proposals would be May 20th. So the community would then proceed to vote for the proposal version they want to be included in the first MIP set and put up for ratification. Got it. And Charles, since you're here, do you have any kind of like status update on whether there are competing proposals or whether the community has mainly just been working to update the current ones?
Yeah, I mean, the general focus, I think, after not last week, but the week before, governance risk call, where I walked through MIP0, was that we're just going to kind of work to implement as much feedback from the community as possible. And we did integrate a lot of the feedback from both the forums and the Rocket Chat channel. I mean, if the timing poll does resolve to no, that will mean that people are very interested in creating competing proposals for the ones that are in question now. So I guess only time will tell. But my current stance is that we iterated on the feedback and they liked the current structure, and people do know that this whole MIPS framework is an iterative improvement type structure,
Totally,
so it can change
totally.
over time.
Right on. Awesome. Thank you so much for the update. Cool. So, all right. Then moving forward, a few other little points that I highlighted for the TLDR. One large CDP migrated using the migration contract, which is actually now empty. I should have die stats saved in my cookies. What the heck, man? Yeah, so the die from migration contract is now empty, meaning that actually people who still hold CDPs in SCD actually can't migrate anymore. For them to close out their positions, they have to manually source Psi and close out their position, or they have to hold through the emergency shutdown and simply redeem their positions or their Psi for ETH. So yeah, the question here, which I'm anticipating is, okay, I have a CDP now and I can't migrate. What should I do in the next 3 weeks before the actual shutdown? Well, those are the two options. You could either hold on to your position in your Psi, or you could try to offload it through places like 1inch or Uniswap or anywhere that has any Psi liquidity. And of course, when doing so, be mindful of the reality of slippage. Basically be careful when you're considering your next options here. But the migration contract is drained. There's no way to actually get Psi into it because we closed that bridge. So yeah, from the perspective of the protocol, everything is kind of done and dusted there, and we're really just waiting for these next few weeks to pass, and then for May 12th. May 12th is the date, right? where is it? Yeah, May 12th to come around, and for us to close the chapter. Yeah, it's pretty monumental stuff. I mean, I've been around for a few years, and it's like shutting down SCD once and for all is like monumental to the whole timeline of MakerDAO. So it's very exciting to me. Right on. So we've also seen an increase in DAI supply since last week. This is partially because of the SCDP, geez, waffling here, the CDP that migrated, but also because we've seen more DAI from USDC. We've also seen more DAI from ETH naturally, even besides the migrated amounts. And this was naturally, I feel, a result from the further decision by MKR governance to lower the stability fees for the sake of this floating DAI peg. Another really big thing in governance is this conversation going on right now about a second governance facilitator. And so if you don't know, I mentioned it last week, but Richard Brown, who was set up to be the first governance facilitator, has gone through the role and is ready to open it up for a community elected governance facilitator, and he nominated Long for Wisdom, naturally. And a ton of people were in agreement with this, and actually Long for Wisdom responded on the forum that he would be interested, but there are several issues that need to be addressed and thought about, and so this is going to be kind of the next step for this conversation if you're interested in reading. And then lastly, a quick update on with regards to zero bid auctions. MakerMan has been working on a liquidation report with some on-chain data, with actually a few sources of on-chain data, and he's going through a final review today or tomorrow, and he's actually handing it off to Long for Wisdom to do some further review. And so that should be getting published here pretty soon. All right, those were all my major points. Now I'm going to go through kind of just the polls that are live right now that are happening. There is no executive vote that's happening right now. The next executive to go up will happen on Friday the 1st, and it will be, or will not be, the ratification vote. All right, so a few governance polls this week. This is the timing poll to proceed with the MIP ratification vote. I already talked a bunch about this, so I'm going to skip over that. There's the usual DAI stability fee adjustment. This adjusts the stability fee on both BAT and ETH vaults. There's a USDC stability fee adjustment. There's a DSR spread vote that happens bi-weekly, but it's happening this week. And then there's a debt ceiling adjustment, which is a further increase of the ETH DAI debt ceiling from 100 up to 110. So another 10 million raise, keeping it tight. And all of these end on Thursday, right before the governance call, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So yeah, if you're an MKR holder, go out and vote. And if you actually noticed, one governance poll is missing from the list this week, which is the size stability fee adjustment, and mainly because size stability fees have been forgiven. So that vote is probably not going to happen anymore. All right. So moving on, summary of Thursday's risk and governance call is going to be coming live later tonight, but actually, I guess I'm going to save what I'm going to say about the risk and governance calls for a few minutes from now. But there have been actually more than just the Thursday risk and governance call happening. There's been additional ones happening that are set up by the community to talk about MIPS, for example, to talk about collateral onboarding. There were a couple last week from Cyrus and the risk working group, and they kind of did a presentation again about the progress they've made on the Maker risk model, the collateral onboarding risk model, and all that good stuff. So yeah, and I have links for that down below, so you guys can check it out if you've been missing it. If you are not a regular, even if you are a regular, now you're reminded governance at a glance exists. It's a thread on the forums that's upkept by a couple of people in the community, and mainly Long for Wisdom. and it basically just keeps all of the current events there in a single place for anybody who's kind of just coming and passing, trying to catch themselves up on what's going on. So yeah, a few of the threads that I've highlighted are the ratification timeline, which is just good to kind of solidify this timeline in your head if you're a regular MKR voter. And then also the WBTC collateral request for comment thread has just recently been put up. So in light of what happened in March, and in light of kind of everything, there's a far greater energy and push for getting collateral finally onboarded to the Maker protocol. And I think the first major candidate for that is WBTC. And so there was already a collateral application filed for WBTC. And I think that this thread is just doing some further digging into the feasibility and the details and maybe the blockers and all that stuff for WBTC. So if you're interested in WBTC or have special knowledge, definitely jump in there and help governance make the right decisions. All right, so yeah, and then the last thread that I mentioned is this conversation on system reserves, and this is of course talking about where's this beautiful number, the surplus buffer, which initially was set to 500,000, and then every 10,000 above that, it would auction off for MKR in a surplus auction. And so right now, kind of the conversation about what should the surplus buffer be is going on. And is 500,000 enough? And March 12th says clearly not. What's too much? What are the risks involved with having this be a very high number versus a relatively low number? What's a balance? What are the things to be considering? And there's a forum poll in that thread as well. So definitely participate if you have strong opinions on that. And yeah, so that's the quick 30-minute wrap up of governance at MakerDAO this week. And feel free to jump in with any questions or comments if you feel you have any. And if there aren't any, I'm gonna kind of breeze through and fly ahead. So a couple of partnerships happened this week. We saw Uphold Inc. Give users access to USDT and DAI. Uphold Inc. is kind of like a anything for anything type of exchange. I think it's custodial though, but not 100% sure. Gemini also listed DAI, which is pretty cool. All right, so some highlights from the community. This is maybe the coolest thing I'm saying that obviously just personally. This is one of the coolest things I saw this week. I actually saw it right before the call. I think Brian posted it in a chat somewhere. And I had seen it on Twitter, but I didn't give it the proper look it deserved. But MetaClan is rising, and this is really cool because it's actually a crypto native esports clan. So for those of you that play video games, there's these things called clans. They're just communities of people that play similar games. So this one has a focus on leveraging play to earn mechanics that are super easily enabled by the technology of DeFi. And they are, crypto native esports clan built to drive forward the future of gaming. So they actually launched their DAO, I think today or yesterday or whenever the article was posted. And the article gets into how and why you should join. And to join, it's as little as 25 DAI. So yeah, really, really, really cool initiative. I'm a huge fan. And actually, I'm going to try to see if I can get them on the community call in the coming weeks to talk more about maybe the kind of games that are included with this clan and all that kind of stuff, and also some of the perks that people who join would get, and just digging into kind of this because I think it's super exciting. Anyway, enough about how much I think that's exciting. Time to move on with the rest of the agenda. For developer creations, I only managed to find one thing, and that's that Dharma, and actually, I guess this kind of also falls under partnership, but Dharma brings DAI stablecoin payments to Twitter, and so this is super cool tool. You could just deposit your crypto to your Dharma account, and then you find any Twitter handle you want to send funds to, and then you send your payment, I believe, through the Dharma app. You're able to generate like a link. And so when you send the link, you just retweet DharmaBot and tag your recipient to ensure they see it. Or rather, oh yeah, that's how you actually send your payment. So you just send out a tweet retweeting DharmaBot, and then they're able to click on the link and redeem whatever you sent them through a Dharma account. So that's pretty cool. An article by Mr. I forget, his name is Danger? I forget. Yeah, Danger Zhang. Yeah. So Danger wrote a really sweet article. Is MakerDAO still safe to use? This is inevitably a huge question that is on the minds of users of the protocol following what happened in March. And his conclusion is that this is still very nascent early technology. You don't know what the future holds, but one thing is for sure, that March 12th made the Maker protocol stronger as a result of the actions that the Maker governance community took to improve the protocol, and also the actions that it's still taking to minimize liquidity risk, to minimize like technical risk, and to basically safeguard the protocol from going through what it went through on March 12th again. So yeah, some notable threads coming close to the end here, but a few notable threads. Adrian is continuing to pump out his MKR holder digest. It's already week 17 since he started, which is a huge props to him for continuing that. And he is always improving it. I see it every week that I read it. Really great summary if you don't want to catch these community calls. You could always look at his digest. But and also another thing he did with it was he made it available on Amazon Alexa as a skill. So you can now say, if you believe in talking robots in your home, I know I don't, but you could say, Alexa, open Maker Governance Digest, and you're going to hear the latest issue. And soon it's coming to iTunes. So yeah, he's doing some really great work to keep MKR voters informed with what's going on. Yeah, notable threads: Centrifuge Tinlake, which might be probably the leading STO facilitator provider. I guess that's what we can call it. STO is a security token offering. So they're doing some really cool stuff with tokenizing real world assets. We've had them on the community call actually to talk about the tokenized royalties by Paperchain. How they managed to actually do some forward financing for a Spotify artist to the tune of like $10,000. So really cool stuff. Really cool innovation in a
Hey, Dave.
part of finance that's a little hard. Hey, what's up? Hey, somebody hopped on the mic. Happy to answer a question or a comment if you need. All right, cool. So yeah, so Centrifuge Tanake, they submitted 2 completely new collateral types for inclusion in MCD. So they just did the collateral onboarding application, and they are the freight shipping invoices originated by Console Freight, and then the music streaming royalties that they've been working on with Paperchain. So yeah, lots of collateral onboarding applications, and that's an exciting sign. And then another notable thread I mentioned is DeFi Saver MakerDAO dashboard, a quick start guide. This is super cool because it's an alternative dashboard for accessing Maker vaults, and so they did a really cool infographic to kind of explain each element of pretty much any vault dashboard that you would encounter. But this is specific, obviously, to their own interface, and is definitely useful for users, knocking down the barrier to entry to use these kinds of tools. And as I mentioned earlier, there's multiple risk calls going on. We only do the summary for the Thursday call unless there's special kind of request to do other ones. So 89 and 90, I believe, both focus on aspects of risk and collateral onboarding. I believe 89 talks about the general risk model, just an overview, and then episode 90 talks a bit more about the calculation of the inputs and some of the thinking that goes behind considering jump risks and other stuff like that. So yeah, two episodes definitely worth watching. And then lastly, Mariano Conti was on yet another podcast. So Going Bankless, which I think is Ryan Sean Adams's podcast, had Mariano Conti on again to talk about his experience with DAI and Maker and his epic bankless journey. Yeah, and then the last thing I want to mention, and I haven't mentioned real life events in so long, right, because of the whole pandemic situation, but we're going to be participating in a virtual free event done by Consensus Distributed. What's going on?
Vou por aí, ó. Joga e joga. Tropa dupla aí, ó.
Nice.
Vou por aí, ó.
Yeah, sorry about that, Jones. That sounded a little catchy. Here, let's get Emma Jr. out of here. Nice. Anyway, yeah, sorry about that, guys. Anyway, so Greg DePrisco, who's our head of BD at the foundation, is going to be speaking at Consensus Distributed. And Consensus Distributed, they're doing a fully virtual, fully free kind of conference style set of things over May 11th through May 15th. And so I included a link in the agenda if you want to find out more info about it. Oh, why am I? Yeah, cool. So hold on just a sec. Yeah. All right, right on. So yeah, that's about it for the agenda for this week, and we got about 20 minutes left on the call. I'm happy to end it a bit early. I'm also happy to open it up to anybody here for questions, comments, even just if you guys want to discuss anything in particular, feel free to raise your voice, and we could totally have that conversation. Otherwise, I'm going to give it maybe 3-4 minutes. If there's silence for that amount of time, I'm going to end the call a little early. Try to get some extra productive work done today. Also, happy Tuesday. Oh man. All right, cool. Well, I think that's I think that's like a signal.
That was your sign, David.
That was the sign. Time to go. Word.
All right, good job.
Yeah, that's a wrap. Thank you guys for coming on. I hope this was useful to you guys, and see you next week.
Thanks, David.
Take care.